Hello, everyone, and welcome to Discourse episode 9. We're talking about the hit series that everyone is talking about. Everyone's been asking me, Chris, have you seen Arcane? And I was always saying, I don't know what the hell that is. I'll check it out eventually. I'm busy, whatever. Leave me alone. But I finally buckled, and I'm very happy that I was badgered about it. The people were telling me to watch this because I absolutely love Arcane. This is an adaptation of League of Legends, which is created by Riot Games, which I've only had a little bit of experience with beforehand, before watching Arcane. I talked about this on other platforms, whether it be on Double Toasted or my own various platforms, and saying that I remember playing it at like a kind of like a LAN-esque party at like a Rooster Teeth convention, RTX, like 2016, so quite a while ago. And I played it, and I was like, all right, I mean, it's fun, I get it. It's not my kind of game, but I understand why people are passionate about it. And so when I heard about like an adaptation happening for it, I was like, hey, good for them, good for them. It's not my thing, but that's cool. But then everyone started talking about it, and people who didn't even know about League of Legends started talking about it. I'm like, Chris, you need to watch this. I said, okay. And so I finally did it, and by the first episode, I was blown away by every facet of it, if you will, by its beautiful animation, its world building, which never makes you feel lost at any point. And I want to talk about world building and how good video game adaptations do world building and how bad video game adaptations try to do world building, because there's something interesting that this released alongside another particular video game adaptation this past month of November. I absolutely love the characters. It is probably the best thing, other than maybe the only other series, maybe Mitchell's versus the Machines. It's one of two things that I've seen this year that I absolutely adore, that I think are kind of perfect. Like, I don't have any issues with this series. It's shocking. Like, do I have any criticisms of this show? Do I think anything is wrong with it? And I for myself, I can only speak for myself. Others may find issue with it, and that's totally fine. But for me, I'm like, yeah, I can't think of anything. It is, it's kind of like, as a character says, you are perfect. And it's true, you are perfect, Arcane. So I'm a big, really big fan of this series. But I want to pass it to the other people who are here right now. We have a nice little intimate group, which is really cool. We got Deadpool, we have Stefan, Duck and Henry, we have Kazfeng. And I'm just gonna go ahead. I'll start at the top, and I'll ask Deadpool, what are your thoughts on Arcane, and what was your experience with the League of Legends property before you started watching it?
Well, I never really been all that interested in League of Legends because when it started getting popular, pretty much only thing I really heard about is how toxic the community could be.
I've heard the same, yeah.
So I'm like, I don't want to play a game where I'm just gonna have people yell at me the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like, multiplayer gaming can be toxic as is, but everyone always pointed at League of Legends being one of the most toxic. So I knew it kind of existed, but I never really was into it. So I went into Arcane completely blind.
Nice. And yeah, keep going.
Oh no, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, keep going.
Well, so yeah, like, I heard it was good. I just wasn't sure how good it was because I saw DT do their review of it and like impress Corey, which I'm like, I mean, Corey, he's really into animation, so like, if it impressed him, it must be pretty good.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, the animation's amazing. Like, just the style. Like, sometimes you almost forget it's animated.
It's the kind of animation where the characters are so articulate in how they move. Like, there's subtlety to it, which a lot of animation just kind of forgoes. Like, it's not. Oh, sorry. I'm in the background, and I surprised myself with my own voice. I'm currently rendering some stuff. So you didn't hear it, but I heard me. I was like, shut up, me. But to your point, like, I agree with you. Like, it's the small, subtle articulation of the character movements, which kind of puts us above a lot of animated projects. It's like the subtlety of like someone's eyes or their pupils, which is like, you never pay attention to that in an animated movie. Like, it's never really there. It's if you look at some like 2D cartoons, it's like, you're lucky if they have like even normal looking eyes. And so I really like that just the level of detail was always emphasized, and it's so important, and it makes these characters feel real. It's just another feature added on top of these already really well written and well acted um, characters, whether they be the main cast or the supporting cast or even tertiary. So I totally agree with you in regards to the animation, how even subtle but very important certain things are. Any other thoughts? Any other general thoughts on the series that you noticed that you really appreciated?
Yeah. The thing that impressed me the most was the writing.
Mm.
I mean, like, going into this, it's sort of like fantasy steampunk esque. So you think, okay, you're going to have your traditional like adventure story archetypes and almost borderline stereotype characters, and
Yeah.
those elements are there, but they build on it so much. Like, I mean, the villain of the series, you think he's just going to be one of those mustache twirling villains, but
Hmm.
he has those moments, but he has so much more depth to them.
Yeah.
Like all the characters that you're introduced to, like there you see the archetypes there, but they build off of them and add other aspects to them. Like all the characters are nuanced.
Yes.
All their decisions make sense in the context of their situation, even if you think they're doing something dumb. Like it makes sense. Like there's even moments where characters will have moments to reflect on their decisions and even change their mind, which you really don't see a lot in a lot of like at least fantasy action adventure like animation. Characters are
Hmm.
pretty straightforward. But this one, it's just like you don't really know what decisions they're going to make sometimes.
Well, every single character, to your point, like every single character is flawed. Like even the ones who are especially altruistic. Like, some of these characters are naive or they don't understand the big picture. They don't see the big picture. And I really like that. Even with a character like Jace, who we'll talk about later on, who, along with Victor, creates Hex Tech, as it's called, which is taking magic and science and putting them together and make it easier for use among the people of this world. Or yeah, it's someone like Silco, who I want to get into a lot of details about, or get into very specific detail about his character, where he seems to be like this just like, oh, he's run of the mill villain, but you understand his point of view, and there's this connection with his adopted daughter, which really humanizes him. Like every character has that, even the ones that aren't even in the main cast. There's so many layers to them. Or we find out so much more about them as the season goes along. Like no one feels like a throwaway character, which I think is really unique to an animated property, which I really appreciated. So I fully agree with you. Any other thoughts before we move on?
Yeah, my other thoughts besides the characters, just the themes that the
Mm.
series deals with, like, because you have this, like, of course, there's the obvious, like, there's the various class issues between the
Sure.
people in the undercity and then the people in the overcity, and then you have the themes of like science run amok, utilizing science, and then there's politics, and like there's a lot of different elements at play going on simultaneously throughout all these different plot threads that are going, and it's interesting how they interact with each other and how the characters' motivations change depending on the scenario they're in, how like one affects the other.
It's
Like
no, keep going. Sorry.
the show does a really good job of balancing all these plates at the same time and having
Hmm.
them intersect and make sense.
It is, it's like we've seen these types of storylines before, and these types of themes. I mean, across all sorts of mediums, whether it be live action or animated. But I think they're all elevated, or they're all made the better or more interesting because of the characters. I think that's what really helps it. It's not doing anything too different, or the aesthetic is not too unique, but it's just because you've spent so much time developing these characters. It makes these stories, which we've otherwise seen across all sorts of different films or TV shows or animated projects, fascinating or very interesting, or we want to follow them. So yeah, I agree. Like how it's handling these themes with such depth and reverence and care has been great. Nothing feels neglected. Nothing feels inauthentic.
Well, I think the interesting is like a lot of other shows they'll play with one or two, but this one has all these different like themes going on at the same time. I think that's the impressive part of it
Mm.
because most shows can get away with one or two. Heck, Star Wars only uses
True.
one or two at most, but this one has multiple going on at the same time through interconnecting plot stories.
And they all are given, I think, just the right amount of time too. Like nothing feels neglected. Nothing feels like it's brushed to the side. Everything feels kind of like in a weird, perfect balance, what I think is really cool. It's not like just thrown away. So no, I agree with you. I agree with you. Uh, moving on. If you unless you have anything else to say before we move on to another person.
That pretty much sums up everything until we start getting a little more nitty gritty detail stuff.
Cool. Stuff all about yourself, good sir. Your general thoughts on the show. What was your experience before watching League of Legends? Did you have any experience with League of Legends?
Yeah, I started college around when League was getting really big in around 2011, 2012. And I started playing League with a few buddies, as a lot of people were doing casually. And a lot like Deadpool said, the community was toxic. It did end up driving me away after like 1 or 2 years because I did suck. And I would get a lot of feedback on how much I sucked. So, like to the point where you'd get death threats and stuff because
Wow.
these matches meant a lot to these players. You know, you'd miss an ambush or something, or you'd miss a tower, and all of a sudden you were told exactly how much your mom was a slut.
Jesus
So
Christ.
yeah, and you know the funny thing is when it first started out, League wasn't like that. It wasn't nearly that toxic, but
Mm-hmm.
over the years, people just got the community just toxified more and more, and in my opinion, Riot Games never truly did enough to change that culture.
Mm.
Uh, there weren't any mods, there wasn't much regulation, and over time, Riot Games focused, I think, more on the championships and the major gameage where you'd have these huge festivals and stuff for League of Legends, these huge tournaments, and they focused
Mm-hmm.
more on that than going into the nitty gritty, going into the code, and fixing the game and making it more welcoming to people.
You know, since you seem to have your ear to the ground regards to like the fan base, I'm kind of curious about that. I'm glad you really brought that up, the toxicity of it.
Sure.
Because I'm unfamiliar with it, really. Outside of that one time I played it, at RTX like years ago. Now at this point, 5 years ago, and I was like,
Mm.
oh, okay, it's all right, it's fun, but not my thing. But like, how? Because I don't know if you've been following, but how is the fans? What people who play this game? What's the fan base reaction to the show? Because I don't even know.
I mean, they love it. The fans for League of Legends have been asking for an adaptation for a really long time
Mm-hmm.
because if you look at the gameplay itself, a lot like Corin Martin said, you look at that, you're like, how the hell
Yeah.
did you get this out of this? It's a tower defense game. You know, it's
Right.
a bunch of little creatures running at you. What is this? But from the beginning, when League first started, they set out these characters, champions as they called them, with these rich backstories, and they would have allegiances to certain things, you know, countries, um, societies, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And they built it through the champions, and that's really why I think that Arcane, when it first started, it had a good shot at being great because you already had these rich characters with this rich lore and you had this world already built up. You just needed to execute it well. So I'm not as surprised that so many people are that this went well, because the story was there.
Mm.
And a lot of fans, I think, of League of Legends knew it.
Nice. I was just very curious about that because I'd heard like because I'm streaming and or doing this. People brought up the toxicity of the fan base or at least a segment of it, and I was curious if they didn't like the show for whatever reason. So I like literally I don't know. It was just kind of interesting to me. So yeah, to hear that they do like it, I was like, okay, that's good.
Well,
But
yeah,
yeah, keep going. Sorry.
there's a lot of famous YouTubers who started off on League of Legends and ended up leaving the game just because
Oh.
of how toxic the community got.
Wow. That's crazy. What about your thoughts on the show? I mean, you've played League of Legends, or at least you had some experience before a time. Your general thoughts on Arcane, like, dislike, that kind of thing.
I mean, I was definitely I was struggling to get into it at first because I was just hearing about it and I was being a little bit of a hipster, like, oh, it's popular, whatever. But I heard Imagine Dragons and I was sick of Imagine Dragons because they shoved them into everything. But I finally, I took off my Grinch costume. I finally was like, all right, let me pop this thing on, and I fell in love from the jump. I mean, you can see a lot, like how you said, how much love and care the animators have put into this. From something as simple as eye movement, just like you said, it's not something people often think about, but how much of a difference it just makes being in a show. And, to put so much love and care into something as simple as eye movement, facial twitches, to making so much depth for the characters, because a lot of these situations, they're not unique, they're not new. Class warfare, we've been watching shows and watching movies about class warfare for years now. It's not that different of a story, but when you put characters you care about into that story, it makes it a whole different animal. And I have to say, I love that about this show.
Nice. No, thank you for sharing. Casvey, about yourself? Obviously, your general thoughts on the series and what your experience was like with League of Legends beforehand, if you had any experience with it.
I didn't really have much of any experience with League of Legends, although I have some friends who have played it, and I remember them mentioning it to me before. When I was watching some of the promotional material for Arcane, at first I didn't realize it was a League of Legends adaptation, but I did hear about how toxic that community was, and I was intrigued that there was something out there giving it a good name. And I honestly think it's a really incredible show. I agree with what's been said so far. The stories and the characters and everything is all so intricately woven together, and it feels like it was done with care. It doesn't feel like just a shameless cash grab. And I agree. I think it's because there were already such rich backstories with these characters, and obviously the people writing this show have probably been fans of the material, it feels like. And I love how in so many ways this show very much kind of holds up a mirror to our own society. Like, as I started examining more this world and all the different issues in it, especially to prepare for this discussion, I was like, it was almost educating me about the way government works in general.
No, I could totally see that, especially when you have the haves and the have-nots, and how the haves like, yeah, I mean, we'll do what we can, but in the end, we don't give a shit about these people, and that creates resentment, and that breeds an element of not only distrust, but also someone who will exploit the downtrodden in the name of something they believe is good. And they'll capitalize on the resentment and to fight against a back against the people who have everything. Now it's fascinating how it plays with all these themes, and it never feels unbalanced. It's like we were always seeing each side, and I really like that. So I'm right there with you. I thought that was fascinating. And there's so much specific detail we can go into later on with that. But we're also joined by Person Mans. Person Mans, welcome to the Discourse. I hope you're doing very well today.
I'm doing fine.
Nice. Well, we're in case you don't know, we're just kind of going over our general thoughts on the show and what our experience was with Arcane, or I guess in this case, League of Legends, before we started watching it. And then we'll talk about other aspects of it and characters and favorite moments and that kind of thing. Very simple. But if you have anything you want to say about the show, like what was your experience like with League of Legends beforehand, if you had any experience, and what was your general thought? What's your general thoughts on the series so far for this first season?
Well, with League of Legends, I remember following it since it came out. I'm following the lore since it came out.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a big fan of that. I tried to play it once. That did not go well. But I only heard about this show like about a month before it came out, but but it's outstanding, and I'm very happy that it's getting the reception that it is.
Same. No, I think it's taken a lot of people by surprise. People just weren't familiar with League of Legends and they just heard about it, and it just kind of we've seen this groundswell of people just checking it out and saying it's not just made for the fans; it's made for everybody.
I sat
really
down
cool.
with. Sorry.
No, keep going. Go ahead.
I sat down with my dad and I was like, "We're watching this," and he didn't know what it was, but he was blown away by it, and he didn't know it was based on a video game until about 5 hours ago. So
that's what's good about that kind of thing. This is one other point I wanted to hit. This is the best kind of video game adaptation, in my opinion, because you don't need to know the original source material to enjoy it. Like, I think it does such a perfect job of, introducing all this world building, having all these characters, all these themes, all these concepts, and it gives it to you in such a way where I personally never felt overwhelmed watching this show. I was like, okay, I thought it had a nice pace where it was giving me all the character stuff, and then introducing the governmental structure, talking about these two cities or these two sides of this city, and kind of adding more things about the world. Like, I never felt lost, and that was great. And it's so funny that this show came out around the same time as something like Resident Evil Welcome to Raccoon City, where it's the complete opposite of Arcane in pretty much every single way, where if you hadn't played the games, you wouldn't really know what the hell's going on. They introduce so many different things, creatures, concepts, rules that they don't tell you. You have had to have played Resident Evil 1, Resident Evil 2, or be fairly intimately aware or familiar with the series to get what's going on. And they just do the thing where they throw Easter eggs at you, and the characters are so underwritten. There's nothing to them, to their personalities, nothing that makes them unique. Where Arcane is the opposite, where there's never a moment while watching the show where I thought this is an Easter egg moment. It's like, huh? You see it? See what we did right there? Like, maybe there was, but I couldn't tell. And maybe only for people who are League fans, maybe they did those Easter egg moments, but it was so subtle that it didn't come off awkward to me. So I couldn't even tell if there was something like that, which is really cool. But we'll just go down the board, and if anyone had, this is just free for all at this point. Then we can go ahead and talk about characters and the voice acting and anything else. But did anyone feel the same way while watching the show? Did anyone feel lost, or did anyone feel like, oh, that didn't feel like an authentic moment right there?
Nothing felt inauthentic, but I will say at times I personally would lose track of certain characters, or like someone would get introduced really early on and I wasn't sure why they'd be important, and then when they'd come back again, I'd forget why they were, like, when they were introduced earlier. But that's kind of more on me than anything. Like, that's just I think it's just more my own neurodivergencies, because it's all well written. Everything makes sense. Everything works. It just, it's just, I think a lot of it's also rewatchability. You go back and you catch things that you didn't catch before, because everything's just so well planned out, and there were so many people obviously involved in this and dedicated to this.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. It's there is a lot of, it's a lot of detail. It's a lot of stuff. Like, we don't feel lost while watching it, but there is other things you might have missed. Something in the background, or a certain character moment or something, or we can reanalyze and go like, oh shit, I see what they're doing right there, or I see how this then goes all the way, like this introduced very early on in the episode, and how they come back to it at the finale. It's like, oh, I see how I had this all planned. So that's really cool. It is rewarding. It's very rewatchable. You're absolutely right. Whether it be for the story or the characters, or definitely for the animation. But does anyone else, while watching it, did anyone ever feel lost or anything, or did you notice? Like, I know, Stefan, you talked about. I mean, you probably have the most experience with League of Legends than any of us. Did you see, I'm sure there was Easter eggs and things, but did anything feel inauthentic to you, or one that you or like heavy-handed?
There were a few scenes, in a lot of the show, people are scribbling, and then you see like a lot of people's books and such. There were some moments where they'd show champions in that way, and then they'd
Mm.
have, yeah, they'd have little signs. Like one example is the fight between Jinx and Echo, where
Hmm.
Echo is a known character in the game, and he has this power set which doesn't really come into play in this season, but just the animation with that and the way that they did the fight and how it played out, kind of how time rewinds from that animation where they're children, and then it rewinds to like, oh, this is reality. The stakes are a lot realer. That was very indicative of how he plays in the game. So like that was really cool. But at no point does this show hold your hand and say, "Hey, hey, you see that? You see? That's that guy. That's that
Interesting.
guy from that part in the game." And I gotta say, I gotta commend them for that because to this day, a lot of studios still haven't gotten that.
No, they don't. They're too blunt, or
Very
they're not
blunt.
as articulate as obviously the creators for this. Which, by the way, it's not only Riot who's doing the animation; is also Fortiche, which is a
Right.
French animation studio. And wow, I want to see what else they've done even before Arcane. I'm sure that their name is out there now. I think a lot of people, a lot of studios are paying attention to this series and seeing if they can do something similar, or at least improve upon their own animated projects, just projects in general, or other video game adaptations. There's a new high standard in my opinion, and
Yes,
Arcane
they've
is
raised the
definitely
bar.
one of the they raised the bar along with Castlevania, which I think has done such a great job. And it's like Netflix. I mean, they may not be very good at live action anime adaptations. At least what I have seen. I haven't seen the most recent Cowboy Bebop, so people might disagree. But when it comes to video game adaptations, especially when they make them animated, pretty goddamn good job. But any other thoughts in regards to the world building or how they handled maybe some of the other elements that are very much from the game? Did anyone feel like it was handled well or maybe not well? I'm just curious.
Well, I think they have the benefit of a TV series, unlike
Mm.
Welcome Raccoon City, where they try to cram everything in one movie.
True. No, that's very true. Where it's what I've gone over many times was a huge mistake. It's like, why are you doing that? There's plenty of story and character and details and fun moments in either game. There's no need to combine them and truncate everything and make everything feel rushed. So yeah, I like the fact I'm very happy that they chose to make this a TV series and not just like 22-minute episodes. I mean, these are long episodes. These are like 40, 45 minutes. I was like,
Yes.
God damn, this is nice. And I really like that. That was a really, really nice length.
Well, it allows the plot to be driven by the characters. Well, when you have something like Welcome Raccoon City, where the plot's driven by the plot, because it's like, okay, we're at this point, we need this to happen,
Yeah.
regardless of the characters. Well,
Yeah.
this one, which I think adds to it with Arcane, is like you're basically watching it through the character's eyes, what's going on, and introducing the world through that. Well, with something like Welcome Raccoon City, stuff just happens.
Sure. Yeah, you're right. It just happens, and there's no rhyme or reason for it, and they don't tell you like why this is happening. Like League of Legends at least does so, or Arcane at least does so. Moving on from some of the world building aspects, and how they just kind of handle and adapt the property, whether it was authentic or inauthentic or not. I did also want to mention. I wanted to mention this because as I've said before, I'm ignorant when it comes to music. I've always been very honest about that. I never pretended not to be. But I will say I know good music when I hear it, and I really love the music for this show. And they have multiple artists and multiple moments where it does not. I'm going to say it's like a music video because it almost sounds facetious, or it's almost like I'm talking down about it. But they do have these sequences where they really do focus on the music, and I really like that, particularly when it comes to a lot of the ends of the episodes, whether it be the finale or as was mentioned before by Stefan in regards to Echo and Jinx. Like they have these little sequences here, but those musical numbers I think are all great. And I know this has been a big point of contention for a lot of people, and I was just very ignorant to this. But Imagination Dragon, that's what they're called, I believe, I guess a lot of people don't like them. I guess their music has been featured in a lot of commercials and often featured in a lot of marketing. And my first exposure to them was this show, and I love the opening theme. I think their opening theme and the music video before they even release the series is great. I mean, I could kind of see where maybe people would be rubbed the wrong way about them actually being characters in the series, but I wasn't bothered by that because the song was so good. But I want to take a minute to talk about how did you guys feel about the music, and how did you feel about Imagination Dragon and their music being in the show, but also them being in the series?
Okay, so Imagine Dragons is one of those bands I have kind of mixed feelings about because I used to really love them, but I guess it is just the fact that they've been overplayed and overexposed and everything and kind of manufactured, I guess. Like, I guess the industry has sort of latched onto them, like, oh, people like this. Oh, they have this edgy post-apocalyptic feel to their music that people are really into. And the thing is, they've been kind of playing that tune for many, many years now. And as cool as the theme song is, it does feel a lot like something they would have released like 3 or 5 years ago. And I still haven't looked it up. Was it written specifically for this show? Because if it came out in 2016, I wouldn't be surprised. That's not to say it's a bad song, but it is what it is. I do think the soundtrack to this show as a whole is really great. And their cameo amused me more than anything else. I didn't hate it, but I was like, I was a little stoned at the time as well. So all of a sudden they show up and I'm like, whoa.
Oh, they're real. They're in the show. Am I in the show? Am I real? Yeah, I totally, I can see that. No, I think that's fair. I think that's very fair. Does anyone else feel similar to Casfang?
I think the issue is Imagine Dragon's story becoming the modern day Nickelback.
I keep hearing that. Yeah.
Yeah. That. Well, kind of like what Casfang says, their music doesn't really change. They found this niche and they're just kind of just beating the heck out of it. And they're safe, so that's why advertisers like them. They don't push the envelope. Their music is consistently the same. I mean, some people are cool with that. Some prefer to see the artists evolve over time and be able to compare the different eras of them. But I mean, that's what it is. As for the music, like everything in this fits thematically with the show and the characters. It's not something like Suicide Squad where clearly the executives are like, well, this song's popular, let's throw this in there.
Right. Right. The music, like everything in the show, it doesn't feel to me like we're gonna put this new hip song in the movie because the kids like the hippity hop or they like the rap. It's like an Illumination movie where they do that shit, or like a pop song. Something like Alvin the Chipmunks. Let's do our cover of a famous pop song that's popular right now, and it'll feel dated 5 years from now when people check out the movie. Like all the music in it, whether it's more of the modern things or the orchestral stuff, for whatever reason, for me at least, it all blends together really well. I guess it also helps that this world, which I guess it's the world of Arcane. I don't know if it has a specific name, League of Legends world or Arcane world or whatever. But this world of Arcane, it just feels like it's an amalgamation of different things from centuries. It's like steampunk, but it's magic, but it's sci-fi too, and cyberpunk, and it's everything. So that's when they use all these different music from different genres, nothing feels like it's out of place, at least for me. And that's why I really liked it. But yeah, you guys brought up some good points in regards to Imagination Dragon. It's like, well, I could kind of see that because you do have some artists that actually actively tried to incorporate different genres, or they try to push themselves, and so they've just been doing kind of the same thing, and that's just boring people. And it's like, okay, now I see it. Because I went before this, I was like, oh, people just hate on this band because they're popular. It's like one of those things. It's like, all right, whatever. But now that you actually brought up some interesting details, I was like, okay, well, I can kind of see the criticisms. I'm like, okay, those are valid. Fair enough. I never heard of them before because, again, very ignorant when it comes to music. And so I was like, these guys are great. Why does everyone hate them? I love this song. So I'm very much that kind of guy. I'm naive when it comes to music. Any other thoughts in regards to music? Do you have like a particular favorite song in it, even if you don't know the name? Was there like a musical moment that you thought, ooh, that really appealed to me, or you really loved it?
The Monster You Made Me.
We all had one.
We'll go with everyone. We'll start with Person Man. Did you say something?
Yes, sorry. I'd like to. I never heard of Imagine Dragon or never listened to them before. I think the theme song is probably my favorite music. I was watching a video where the creators were talking about the incorporation of music, and they were mentioning like deliberately trying to evoke like a music video kind of style in every episode. And I've never, I don't think I've really ever felt like such a like love and attention to how the music affects the show like I have here.
You know, it's funny. I'm glad you brought up that they wanted to make like every episode, a certain segment, like a music video. Because when I hear that, my brain goes, "Ugh, I don't want that." But I watched it and I go, "Well, they handled it really well. It wasn't bad." And so it's kind of weird how normally when we would see that in a movie, it's like, why is this fucking happening? But in this, it just works.
I mean, that's exactly what the Echo and Jinx fight is. It's a music video, but it's outstanding to look at.
It's outstanding to look at, and there is so much history between those characters and how they relate. And it's sad because of how the relationship has changed. And we could talk about like that moment too later on, but how it goes back to the past when they were kids and they were playing with each other, and it shows just kind of the tragedy of it where they are now. It's like, oh, Jesus. And yeah, it's beautiful. Cass Faye, your favorite musical moment?
I would say in the finale, "The Monster You Made Me." I think that's what the song's called. And then, as that rocket's firing through the air and it ends on the line, "What could have been."
Yeah, I'm right there with you. That might be my favorite musical moment. That was so good and so powerful, and it sets up such an amazing cliffhanger.
What a gut punch.
Stefan, what about yourself, good sir? Your favorite musical moment?
Yeah, I'd have to say it was that Echo Jinx moment. The artist, it was Pusha T actually, and yeah, like the music just goes so well with the show. And in defense of Imagine Dragons, yes, they do kind of beat the horse to the ground, but their stuff is still good. The sucky thing is so much of their music just got combined with a lot of corny YA shows. Every time there's a climax, they'd have a song there, and that just got it saturated the market so much that I think that's kind of one of their big issues that they're having right now. But I'd have to say, just from this show, it makes some good stuff. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. So I won't hold it too hard against them that they keep making the same music.
That's fair. Deb, what about yourself, good sir? Your favorite musical moment in the show?
Mine was when V first came back and they were playing the actual theme song. What's the song called? Everybody Wants to Be My Enemy.
Oh yeah.
It just fits the show so well, where it's just like
great moment.
Well, it fits the characters because they don't know who to trust, who's their enemy, who's their ally. Because it's always, for a lot of the characters, it's constantly shifting.
Yeah, true. It's the kind of thing where it applies to every character. Everyone wants to be my enemy because you don't know who to trust. Whether that be Jinx, who can she trust? Who can Vi trust? Who can Jace trust? Like everybody, it applies to. It's that kind of universal theme that it's like, oh shit, it could be everyone's theme song, which I think is really cool. I like that. Yeah, it's a good pick. And yes, Illumination Dragon does show up there in that segment as they watch her walk by, and it leads to a really good fight between her and Silco's number 2. I forget her name. That's it. Yeah, Savika, you got it. Yeah, thank you, Casfe. Thank you. But yeah, I mean, I think we were all in agreement that the music in the series works very well, and there's not an inauthentic moment. And whether it be the more modern stuff or the orchestral stuff, it's just great. And it's very emotional. I also wanted to bring up the other scene where it's I forget what it is, but the name of the song. But it's when years ago when Vi gave Powder that flare and to say to use this when you need me, and she uses it, and that fucking swell of that music comes in there and everything. It's like, oh my god, it's amazing. And then you see her spin around, you see the dead bodies of Klagor and Milo, and it's like, oh Jesus, all that, it's just so sad. It's so sad, but I love that. That was great. The combination of the music and the animation and just the state of the characters was very beautiful. Now we're talking about the characters so much. I mean, there are so many characters in this show. Like I'm on Wikipedia right now, and the main cast, it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, like 10 main characters, and they have the recurring characters, which are all great, I think. But I feel like it would be appropriate. And I mean, you can bring up anyone you want, of course, but I want to hit like a few characters and talk about them. I feel it's appropriate to talk about both Vi and Powder, who then, of course, Powder later becomes Jinx. By the way, I finally understood her name. I was like, why are they calling her? Oh, Gunpowder, because she's using bullets and like muskets. Oh, that's why they call her that. And explosives. Oh, I get it. I was like, why Powder? It doesn't make any sense. It's like, oh, I get it now. But I think they are viewed, at least for me, as the kind of the two main co-leads of this show, which people who don't know who they are sisters who grew up in the Undercity, or as it's referred to by certain people in the show, like Silco, the city of Zaun, which is where a lot of the poor citizens of Piltover reside, and it's afflicted with crime and drugs and all sorts of other malpractices and things. And their parents are killed in an uprising, and they are later adopted and cared for by Vander. And the first act of the show, which is 3 episodes, basically it's you have Act 1, Act 2, and Act 3, and they're all 3 episodes, where we see them as young siblings. And I really liked how initially it showed how different they are. Like with Vi, she's very street smart. She's she's a fighter, she's a boxer. And I really like that about her very blunt personality. And it's reflected in her physical appearance. Whereas, Powder, she is, a lot of people been giving Powder a hard time. We're saying, like, she was crazy from the beginning, but, and she was so incompetent. The thing is, though, with her, is she shouldn't be in a situation like that. This isn't, like, thankfully, Vi was just older, and she could take it. Whereas Powder, she was so young being exposed to all this, and it clearly had an incredibly psychologically and emotionally negative impact on her mind to where she eventually ends up as this character, Jinx. But I really love both characters and what they go through, and I do feel sorry for them. Obviously to varying degrees, because Jinx does start a war by the end of the series, at least for the season at this point. But I totally got where they were both coming from. And, people giving shit to either character, it's like, well, she shouldn't abandon her. It's like, they're also kids. You got to think about that too. And we all make mistakes. And again, it just shows that everyone's flawed. No one is fully, 100% good. Paragon, if you will. Everyone makes these bad decisions because of the moment, but we can go into so many details about each character, and I want you guys to definitely talk about them. But we'll start. Well, this is a free for all. What are your guys' opinions on Vi and also Powder? What scenes did you like with them? What do you think of their relationship and with other characters?
One thing I've noticed upon further examination is also the similarities that come out between them as the series goes along, because they both have this eagerness to prove themselves. And it's like you said about how when Powder was a child, she shouldn't have been in that situation. And that's it's that environment that led her to set off that bomb that killed Milo and Clagger. Vi was trying to convince her in the beginning, like, hey, you're ready. You can handle this. You can do this with us. And both Vi and Powder, I think, wanted to believe that they both had a larger purpose. Powder wanted to prove herself to the group, and Vi wanted to prove herself to Vander, because, like, she was also going behind his back in the beginning. Yeah. And although, like, they're all kids here, and it's all just a tragedy that can't be pinned on one person, but it's like, Powder, in a way, was following in Vi's footsteps, or trying to, when she set off that bomb. And it's very like, as they go along, they both turn out to be this type of person who's very attack first and ask questions later. Except Jinx doesn't ask questions, really, but yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, very good points. Any other thoughts on Powder and Vi? Powder and Jinx, of course.
I think it's one of the best, not to get into my own mental health, but I think it's one of the best, depictions of like an attachment disorder in terms of Jinx. Like she'll latch on to like literally anyone that
Yeah, we see that.
cares about her or says that they do.
You bring up a good point, Person Mans, because in the at the end of the first act where she does kill Clagger and Milo, and she's haunted by them for the rest of the series, creating little mannequin versions of them or dolls of them. I was like, oh my god, yeah, like the first person that she jumps, and I want to talk about this character because I think he's fascinating and I really like him a lot. But the first person she jumps to in the arms of is her possible killer, and that is Silco. And it's that moment is, I mean, so important to her, for her, in terms of, well, this is when she goes down the road of becoming this terrorist, this murderer, this daughter to this criminal, and how that informs her emotional, psychological well-being for the rest of the series. But it's also that thing where she needs to be attached to someone, like she can't let go. And that's just because she was so young and she has these attachment issues, but because she's placed in a horrible situation she shouldn't have been a part of. She shouldn't have been doing these things with Vi or lived with Vander or anything else. But what's interesting about her is how Silco, unlike any other character, and I want to talk more about Silco in a bit, but he accepts her for who she is, whereas everyone else needs her to be this way. Vi needs her to be this way. Vander needs to be this way. Clagor and Milo need to be this way. Everyone needs to be except Silco. Like, I love that. That's some of the most powerful words at the end of the series. Like, you're perfect to me. You're perfect. And I love that. And we accepted for who she is, even if that wasn't probably the best person she can be or potentially can be at all. But it just shows these, and they're both broken people. Silco as well, because of his betrayal and how he has these attachment issues, just much like her. And he saw himself, I think, in her. But I love that about their relationship, as obviously flawed and broken as it is. And with Vi, I mean, she feels the same way, I think, where, I mean, she's, I think, able to handle it better, or maybe handle it in her own way, where it's given her a chip on her shoulder. I mean, she's also, we've seen her where she's done prison time for like, what, a decade? The one thing I'll criticize the show is, like, I don't know how much time has passed in between, like, the first act and the second act. I think it's like 10 years. I think that's what they said. So that's obviously had an impact on her and relationships, and how she's very cagey and not willing to maybe open up to a degree, especially when she's obviously falling in love with Catelyn. I'm just like, okay. I was like, kiss, Jesus Christ. I mean, you guys are touching each other's faces in bed. I was like, I get it. You're looking at her ass half the time, Vi. Like, just kiss her. Oh my Lord. But I almost appreciate the subtlety of that. Like, they're not like, we're gonna make you wait. You're gonna make you wait for that. But it's clearly, they're hinting at that romance between them. But she has these same attachment issues. It's just, she's dealing with it in a different way. But no, I've anyone else has any thoughts, but these are the kind of the things that jumped out in my mind when watching them and how they interact with certain people. Deadpool, do you have any thoughts on Vi and Powder / Jinx?
Yeah. Well, I mean, Powder was a powder keg. Waiting to go off. Like, no, I mean, that's literally probably why they called her that.
It's true. It's true. No, you're right. You're right.
Viv was the one who lit the match. Like, I mean, we tried to give, like, the show, like, at first glance, you want to kind of blame, like, Powder / Jinx for a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
But if Viv didn't do a lot of stuff she did at the beginning and wasn't so headstrong about it and stubborn, none of this stuff would have happened.
Yeah, she fucks up.
Like, yeah, like, if she should have went to Vander from the beginning on everything they did and actually listened to him, none of the stuff would have played out the way it did.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, she's just as guilty, if not more guilty.
No, and I mean no, keep going. I'm sorry.
And, like, I mean, like, it's funny because Jinx almost becomes the Joker in the show.
She's very Harley Quinn-esque to a degree.
Yeah. And it's just, like, just her mental states, like, because, what happened to her and what she did, I mean, it was horrible. Like it wasn't even necessarily her fault, because, I mean, how was she supposed to know it was going to play out like that? Like, yeah. And just the amount of guilt she had because she killed their friends, also led to the death of Vander himself. And then when she was having this mental breakdown, her own sister hits her and basically shoves her away, and when she needed her the most. And that's why she became what she became.
It's just that trauma, especially in that moment, and pushed her into the eyes of someone like Silco, who didn't try to correct her behavior.
And with Viv and Caitlyn, the thing I like about that is it doesn't feel like the relationship was like the show was pointing. See, we have an LGBT relationship right here.
Yeah, agreed.
It was subtle. It's just like it's there, but it's subtle and it feels natural. It wasn't like the show was trying to hey, we're woke.
it's the kind of it's the kind of thing where it just it doesn't feel forced, doesn't feel authentic. It's just these two people clearly have an affection for each other, and they take your time with it. It's not automatic. That's why they're clearly waiting until the next season for them to smooch each other, which I'm like, fine, that's fair. I want to see it done. But no, I really like how the show handles their relationship because it's very adorable, and the flirting back and forth, and how they're always surprised by each other. It's not like one person gets is constantly ups the other person. It's like it's back and forth, and I'm like, that's really cute. Like when they're in the brothel. And
there's one moment.
Yeah, keep going.
There's one moment in the show, which I don't know if you guys remember, when Jinx has them all captured, and she's talking about Caitlyn, and she's bringing out the dish, and you're like, oh my god, is this like 7 all over again? What's in the box? And I was like, I had no idea whether they were going to do it or not, and it's just like they probably could have, because this show, it doesn't pull punches, and it does stuff that they would set something up, and then just pull the rug out from under you. So there's a moment I was totally expecting Caitlyn to die.
Same.
I agree with you. Especially when they do that one little flash when Vi remembers her when she's in bed with her. Remember before the lid's removed? I don't know if you guys caught that, but it's like one little flash, and then she thinks of her, but then it's just the cupcake. I was like, oh, I see. It's because she calls her Cupcake, which I think is a super cute nickname for Catelyn. But yeah, you're right. I'm actually glad you brought up the how they kill characters. Like everyone who died was like, oh shit, it was always a surprise, and none of the deaths felt like unearned or anything. It was just like, oh shit, it just hit you, and you were just like, oh, anyone could die at any moment. You just never know. Obviously, they're keeping certain characters alive, obviously, for the next season, especially, I guess, the champion characters. But again, I'm unfamiliar with the series and who's a champion and who's not, and who's a new character for the series, or maybe who's only been mentioned. So I was like, I don't know. I don't know. And that was really exciting to me. And I love that the show also didn't make them just, well, Vi, she's a brawler, but so is Powder. But she's not as good. I love how they both gave them their own skill set. Or Vi, she's super street smart. She knows how to use her fists. She knows, obviously, clearly martial arts. So she's a brawler. I like that in all her scenes and how she's fighting various people, whether it be Sevka, whoever else. And then with Powder, Jinx, you even see this initially, but everyone kind of dismisses it. She's a fucking crack shot. She's so good. When she beats Milo's score so easily without even barely trying. And it's like, oh wow, okay, she knows it. But no one's praising her for what she just did, which is nuts. And then you see how she creates her grenades, her inventions, her bombs, and I mean her mind, her greatest skill is her mind, as shattered and as broken as it may be. So I like that they had that dichotomy between them, but also they're very similar to each other. Any other thoughts on Vi and Powder, Jinx?
Well, I think you can definitely see the wasted potential sometimes when you go into Piltover and you see these scientists creating these great things, and then Jinx, almost very much like Iron Man, creates a Haz-Tech piece of weaponry with scraps in a cave.
That's true.
And yeah, they even look at her bombs and they're like, yeah, this is genius technology. And with Vi, the good that she could have done if all of her talents were also cultivated as well. But she spends, like you said, maybe a decade rotting away in a prison. And what that does to her morality, because just as Jinx goes down a dark, corrupt path, Vi is straight up out here like, yeah, man, let's kill kids, whatever. Silco's got 100 more of them. We just got to do what we have to do. So, and that's another thing what I like about the show is there's not much, black and white. There's a lot of shades of gray. And yeah, nobody's as bad as Jinx at the end of this season, but they definitely all have some sins on their shoulders.
They got blood on their hands. Everyone's got blood on their hands.
And a lot of it.
Maybe others more than a couple of other characters, but for the most part, they all have blood on their hands. They've all made bad decisions. They've all made choices, which maybe in hindsight they thought would be what they originally thought were the right choice, but in hindsight they go like, I fucked up. So I like that. I really like that. Like no one's getting out here squeaky clean. Like I think is really cool. And they change their opinions. They're not always set in their ways. And even characters you think would never change, they also change. They're like, that's so cool and refreshing. I love that. Except certain things happen. It's like, oh no, it's all gonna be ruined. But yeah, no, I'm glad. Yeah, we can continue talking about Vine, Powder, and obviously the relationship with other characters. But I did want to like those are obviously like if you think like the two main characters of the Undercity of Zaun, if you will, as Silco calls it. But also want to move over to Piltover, which is the ideal utopia where everything's great, everyone's fucking rich. Who cares about the poors? Poo-poo on them. We don't care about them. But we have, some altruistic people, some people who have good intentions, who want to help both the people of Piltover and also the people of the Undercity of Zaun. And we're just the character, kind of like the main lead and his co-lead, I think, for, I guess his two other co-leads for the Piltover arc, if you will, or segment of the show, which is Jace. Who I guess is a champion from the games, and he is this idealist. He's this industrialist, comes from this upper working class family, obviously, and he wants to experiment and perfect hex tech, or at least he wants to harness magic with science. Because we see in this world, like magic is kind of viewed as like hands off. We're very concerned about that kind of stuff. And we see the character of what's his name? Hummendinger? Hemmendinger? I forget, the little guy, the little trolley guy. He's adorable. Heimendinger. I'm sorry. I was used to saying Hummendinger, Hemmendinger, Heimendinger. Thank you. But they're like, fuck that shit. We are not going to touch it. But Jace, because of this thing that happened to him years ago where his mother and him almost died, and he was saved by a magician or a sorcerer. He's always been obsessed with this. But I like his character a lot. I mean, I can see people like, well, he's the boring character. He has the boring arc. It's like, I don't think so. Just because there's nothing wrong with having a character who has this moral altruism, who wants to do right by his fellow man. He's naive as hell. There's no doubt about it. That's because he's the product of the environment that he's been living in this whole time, and he's not aware of the political machinations of the society he supposedly loves or thinks he loves. But I really like his arc and his kind of realization about what's actually going on, particularly with the Undercity and how whether or not he has the stomach for it, but also his relationship with, initially with Caitlyn, where they're on very friendly terms, very much friends. No, there's no romance between them. I can tell. We all know that now, and especially Victor, who I think, as we're going forward, is going to be turned into a very interesting character. But we can cover any three of those if you guys want to. I mean, obviously Caitlyn, she is a woman of society, of the aristocracy, but she wants to prove herself, and she wants to not do the typical thing. She doesn't want to be a lady. She wants to be, what are they called? What are the
Enforcer.
Thank you. Yeah, she wants to be part of the Enforcers, a detective. And Victor, I mean, he wants to help the people of the Undercity, but also wants to help himself so he doesn't die. Which that's a hell of a motivator, and people who are on death's door, they will do anything. A lot of people will do anything so they can prolong their life, and I get it because he's a young man. But any thoughts on either of those three characters? What you liked about them, what you didn't like about them? Certain scenes with them that really spoke to you.
Found it interesting that I took such a liking to Caitlyn right away, in spite of the fact that she's basically this little rich girl and she's had this lifelong dream of being a cop, basically, but you can tell right away that she's always had good intentions. It's just shown that she's been trained for this her whole life, more or less. And I can appreciate the fact that, like, she's willing to defy her parents in the name of trying to do the right thing, and She's the one always trying to go against the grain. And I appreciate that about Jace and Victor as well. Jace, I really love how he's such a cinnamon bun, as some people put it. Like, he is very naive.
That's great. I
he
love
gets
that.
corrupted so easily, and it's so sad, but it's a story that needed to be told because this happens all the time. People try to change the system from the inside out, like him and Victor both. Like, they try to change it from the inside out, and instead they get molded by it without even realizing it.
Very, very good points. Very good points. Any other thoughts on Jace or the other characters, or Victor or Caitlin, from anyone else?
I have to say for Victor, when he comes in and he saves Jace from killing himself, I really thought that was going to be a corrupting moment. Like, Victor was coming in to corrupt Jace's motivations. And you think the same thing with Mel. There's very many moments where characters come in and you're like, okay, I see their agenda. This is the point where that thing that happens in shows or movies always happens, and it doesn't. There are people here who really have good intentions, and Victor, you don't spend a huge amount of time with him, but the amount of time that you spend, you get to see the complexities of his character. Yeah. And he has a good heart, but at the end of the day, he's so focused on progress in his short lifespan that it gets away from him, and that's really it.
Victor is he's scared. It's interesting because
ambitious.
He's scared and he's ambitious, and when he sets his mind to something, he wants to have it done, no matter what the cost is. And we see that. We see the result. We see what that cost is. It's funny because clearly I know like a lot of these characters are champions or characters you play as. And like with Victor, it's clearly he's going down a very dark path. And it's funny that it was mentioned earlier that it's like, oh, is this going to be as you said, is this going to be the corrupting thing? Is Victor going to corrupt him? Because he has that look. He's emaciated. He has those dark circles under eyes. He's like, all right, he's checking we're checking off the checkbox in regards to his typical look. But no, that's not who he is, at least initially. Maybe he's going to grow to be that. But not because he's a mustache-twirling villain, just because he's scared. He's scared, and I like that. I like that motivation for him. And I love that Mel. I'm glad you brought up Mel, too, because, yeah, Jace is he is a cinnamon bun of a man, Casper. I love that. Yep. He's like a puppy, because he's like, I got a new friend, and I met this very pretty lady, and we have sex, and it's great. And everything's going great in my life, but not knowing about what's actually happening, the political machinations, all these different people, and how they're controlling him. Whether they want to or not, whether they mean like they don't mean to, but there's like, this is kind of how it's done, honey, which I think is really interesting. So I really like that. And Mel, she gets a lot more to do in the latter acts, where we see her and how she's in exile from her family, from this other nation, which is coming in. So even, Piltover and Zaun have enemies overseas, which I think is really interesting. But anyone thoughts on any of these characters that we've mentioned so far? Jace, Victor, Caitlin.
If anything, Jace corrupted Victor. Because it wasn't it wasn't until he started introducing this magic stuff that Victor then started to, was willing to keep pushing the envelope.
That's a good point.
That's a very good point. It's more complicated than that, because I was thinking about this. Because the more that Jace and Victor are apart, the farther they each get from their own morals. I think that they're the moral compass for each other.
Yeah, it's like they came together and they did this amazing thing, but now that this technology is proliferating, it's pushing them in directions they probably didn't want to go in. Where it's, Jace like, I got to create weapons to do this, to protect this stuff and to protect the people that I love. But also it's a bastardization of what I originally wanted to create. And with Victor, he's experimenting with things he shouldn't experiment with. And it's killing people. He killed Kimberly Brooks. I was like, I know that voice actress. That's Ashley from Mass Effect. And she exploded. I was like, holy shit. I was like, God damn. He's like, well, I love. He's like, well, I'm gonna give you a funeral. It's like, you should go to jail.
In his defense, it was kind of her fault.
I mean, I
come
guess.
on.
I don't think so.
If I walked in the
she
room
tried to
and
help
see
him, and she popped.
But if I walked
I mean,
in the
he
room and
shouldn't have been
saw
doing
that,
that.
Exactly.
yeah. But if I walked in the room and I saw that, I'm like, I'll be back in 5 minutes. Like
Probably
she
saved his
jumped
life.
into that. Yeah.
She had to save her man. You know, she's been
Yeah.
planning this for years. She's been
She
trying to
was.
get him to walk her home for years, and she's not going to lose him to some random spinning thing. Like she had to get her man.
And then poof.
It got her.
Yeah.
Got her.
And she wasn't wrong for being concerned about him. I
Yeah.
mean, he was fucking up. He was fucking up real bad.
He was, and I'm sure that will continue on.
Well, what
Well, I put the blame. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Well, I put the blame on her because he's so obviously gay. I don't know what she's doing.
I think he's gay. I didn't get that from.
I didn't see
Victor.
that.
No. I mean, people are probably shipping Jason Victor
Yes.
right now. Like the only romance that I felt it was definitely Jason, Mel, and then Catelyn and Vi. Those are the ones I felt personally.
As for with Jace though, like, yeah, he did go into everything with like all of his ideals and stuff like that, and then Mel gives him pretty much a good crash course. Like,
Yeah,
you gotta get your hands dirty a little bit, even if you mean well. I mean, Mel herself. I mean, at first you just think she's just in it for herself, and then you slowly start to realize, like, no, she's actually trying to do some good. She just knows that you have to play the game if you want to make progress. That you have, like, there are people out there who don't play fair, so you can't play fair either, and you have to get your hands dirty.
the Game of Thrones, if you will. I mean, a lot of people are comparing the show to Game of Thrones, which is now it feels like such a generic answer to just a generic statement, but it's true. It's true. Yeah, just learning about the political systems and things, and whose hands to shake, and who's back to pat, and But you're right, Deadpool, because we do see another side of her. She's like, because initially she's like, oh, she's just like a political, manipulator. But no, there's more to her, and she's dealing with her own trauma and her, her mommy issues. Everyone has mommy or daddy issues in this show. Everyone across the board.
Well, my favorite moment with her is when Jace comes to see her after everything that happened, and then he just kind of lays his head in her lap, and she's like, "Wait, what are you doing? This isn't how this." Yeah, and she's like, "This isn't how this works." It's just like, "Oh no, he actually generally likes me. This is weird."
Loves her.
Yeah, like she's not used to that. She's used to like this really abusive relationship with her family, and then everyone just kind of jockeying for power. So with him actually genuinely coming to her with his feelings and wanting to be with her, that you can definitely tell at first she was like, "What the heck's going on?"
Yeah, she was confused. She wasn't used to that earnestness, which it was also kind of adorable as well to see that, how he was so. It also shows like how much he's putting himself in danger by opening himself up to these people. But she's like, oh shit, okay, I guess I feel the same way about you too, which is really sweet.
Which is interesting because her character started to change.
Yes,
like she's no longer this political viper. She's actually starting to push more towards progress as well.
True. She doesn't want to be her mother. I'm sorry, Catherine.
She used to be like Jace, I think. I think that's what drew her to him. Because at first it seems like she's using him, but no, it's like I think he's reminding her of something within herself.
Yeah. No, yeah, of course. Yeah, she's attracted to that. She has a memory of that because that's what her altruism is what gets her exiled from her homeland when her mom did that. And so, yeah, I think, clearly I agree with you. She recognizes that in Jason. She
trying to protect
it. Shit. Yeah, try to protect it or cultivate it.
Trying to protect her little cinnamon baby boy.
Cinnamon bun. I love that. Well, moving on, Liz, I don't have any other thoughts in regards to any of those characters. I mean, there's so many. There's so many characters. I'm trying to cover everybody, give them each person at least their 5 to 10 minutes.
Oh, but you got one more thing.
Please.
Between Victor and the little dog guy, I can't think of his name.
Heimendinger?
Yeah.
Yeah. Heimendinger.
Yeah,
What's his name again?
Heimendinger.
Heimendinger. Thank you.
Heimendinger. It's just like it's like you can definitely see the tension going on because like
Mm.
Humdinger's like, yeah, I live hundreds of years, so what? And Victor's like, I'm lucky if I can get like 20 or 30. And like Humdinger's just saying he's being so overcautious. Is like, yeah, you guys figure it out. I'm like, and they're like clearly like, yeah, but people are dying right now. We don't have centuries. We're lucky if we have like decades. And it just shows how out of touch he is with everything.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought up Heimendinger because he is supposed to be this, this moral authoritative figure in their lives, like a, professor type, obviously. But you do, like, he's just as flawed as everybody else because he is so old. He's wanting to keep everything the status quo. Like, let's not fucking rock the boat whether it comes to this Hextech stuff or even helping the people of the Undercity. And when he's confronted with it later on, he's like, oh shit, these people fucking hate me.
Yep.
And it's not until he's finally confronted because he spent so much fucking time in his ivory tower for centuries. I mean, he's older than the actual city, which is crazy to think about. Isn't like Piltover and the Undercity like 200 years old, and he's in his 300s at this point? And yeah, how he talks about, you're right, how he talks to Victor and like, we'll figure this out in the next couple of decades. Yeah, a couple of decades to you is nothing, and whatever your species lifespan is, but for us, that's a long time. That's and it's definitely most of Victor's lifespan. So
yeah, and
his ignorance,
and he knows he's not.
Yep. Yeah, and Heimendinger doesn't know how to quantify that. He's like, he tries to, but he's awkward about it. Again, just showing what a flawed character he is. Actually, that's what's exciting because I actually want to go into this with him because I think he's going to start to learn to be a better person or more aware, more self-aware of what's actually going on through the character of Echo, who we see as a young boy with Vi and Powder and Clegor and Milo and being a part of that group and how he grew up to be maybe initially what Silco maybe wanted to be, but a revolutionary leader, keeping these people, these other children, these orphans and other individuals that have been cast out of society safe. Like, he doesn't get a lot of screen time. Like, we see, it's funny, we see a lot of him, but it's mostly for action sequences where he leads this group called, I think they're called the Firelighters. And they ride these hoverboards and they're really awesome. And they do these attacks on Silco's, I forget the drug, Shimmer. I think it's called Shimmer. His drug production factories. But that relationship, I think, is going to be really important going into season 2, and they're going to learn a lot about each other, become better people, because he's been especially hard. Because when you initially meet him, he's like this goofy kid that wants to be with everybody, and he's like, I'm excited about being a part of this. And now he's just like, I even like that initial interaction between him and Vi, where she's kind of taken aback at how he's talking to her. And he's like, you never used to talk back to me like this. What's going on? I used to, wash you off when you get covered in grease back in the day when you would do your dumpster diving. So I really liked, even though we saw very little, I love his bits of these characters, and his action sequence was incredible with Jinx. But any other thoughts on Heimendinger and Echo?
Well, with Echo, when the episode they reintroduce him, it's called The Boy Savior.
Kind
of setting up, and like, because when Heimendinger, when he goes to meet Echo, he's like impressed, like, wait, you did all this stuff in this many years? Like,
that's right.
Kind of changing how he thinks about things. How Echo's made so much progress in the few years he's been in charge.
That's a good point. Yeah, especially because he's like, no, this would take decades. He's like, no. No, unless you put your mind to it. That's true. That's a good point. Yeah. If anyone else has any other thoughts on Heimendinger and Echo, then please speak up. But there's other characters we could talk about. But there's the two last ones I wanted to talk about. And one, of course, is the main villain of the series, but also the father figure, if you will, of and maybe the brother-esque figure of Silco, Vander. But I want to talk about both of them because I think they're really fascinating and interesting. And again, Vander is like, oh, he's the father, he's the one that wants to do right by everybody. But at the same time, I think he also kind of suffers from the same problem as someone like Heimendinger does, because we're introduced to him, like, it's right in the beginning. where it's after this failed revolutionary moment where Vi and Powder's parents are murdered, they're killed by the enforcers, and he takes care of them, and he's been able to have this kind of parlay with the city of Piltover, and he's very much he's a criminal too. I mean, he probably wouldn't like to call himself a crime lord, but he kind of is. He kind of is. Like, everyone goes to him. He gets all the backroom deals done, but he maintains peace. He maintains peace of everybody, makes sure everyone gets their cut, and he takes care of the kids, of course, but he keeps everything, much like Heimerdinger, stagnant. It's the status quo. We have to maintain the status quo, even though everything is bubbling up from the surface. People are furious at what's going on. Now, people are being exploited. And unlike Vander, who doesn't want to use certain means to change things, you have a character like Silco, who was betrayed by Vander when he was a young man. And I read that's like they are brothers, which I thought was interesting. Like, Vander is or like I think Silco's the adopted brother of Vander. It's like, okay, shit. But something happened between them where Vander tried to kill him, and this broke Silco, similar to how Vi broke Jinx. And he is willing to take the necessary steps to do what it takes to protect Zaun, but also himself and his own interests, and obviously later on Jinx. But I really love both of these two characters and how they are father figures in some of the best ways and in some of the worst ways too. And Silco is one of my favorite villains, I think, in animation quite some time. By the way, I know we haven't spoken about the voice but the voice acting across the board is spectacular. And the guy who does Silco, Jason Spisak, who looks like the character. So I wonder if they did, because I know Silco's not in the games, as far as I know. I think he was created for the show, but the voice actor looks like him. And then the other guy who plays Vander. Oh shit, I don't know if I have his name up here, but he also does a fantastic job. But anyone's opinions on Vander and Silco? Any thoughts?
I mean, I would love to see more, maybe something of a flashback between them in the second season, I guess, because I'm curious about what exactly happened to make Vander try to kill Silco. Like, was this back before Vander decided to leave that life, or was Silco trying to stop Vander from leaving that life, or something like that? Like, I don't know if they're going to go into it, but it would be interesting too. And I also love that scene where Silco is talking to Vander's statue about Jinx, and it really highlights how similar they are, and how, I mean, Jinx is someone that they both cared about very much.
Yeah, that's a good point. No, I love how, because, Silco basically, because in their confrontation where Silco does, he caused the death of Vander inevitably. Well, technically he's Jinx, but he is also the big cause. Well, he is the kind of the main reason everyone dies. But where he says, I'm going to do the things you weren't able to do. I'm going to take the risks. I'm going to start my war to have my city of Zaun, so we can be truly free. And yet he finds himself in the same place that Vander was, or Vander was willing to sacrifice himself so he could protect his children. And then Silco's like, God damn it, I'm you. I'm just like you. When he's at that statue, he was like, I could have everything I want, but I have to give up my daughter. And I'm not willing to do that. And it shows how he's changed over time, where even he can't go to that degree of sacrificing someone he loves to get everything he wants, which makes him multifaceted. Definitely the villain, but also multifaceted. So very good point. Any other thoughts on Silco and Vander? Any particular scenes that really stood out to you with those characters?
Yeah, Vander, and this is another comparison to Game of Thrones, he has a bit of a Ned Stark moment.
Does he?
Yeah, where, his death sets off this huge thing. I think he gets a lot more honor than Ned Stark, but yeah, I mean, talk about really showing people in the show we're not fucking around, because this show was a tragedy, and
Yeah.
it wasn't a Macbeth type tragedy where there was such obvious heroes and villains, but when people end up dying, you really feel it. And with Silco, kind of how, like you said, he wasn't your generic villain. I was surprised to find after this dude did all this shit, flooded the streets of his own city with Shimmer, creating these addicts, killing all these people. I still was a little messed up when he died. And I'm sitting here like, why do I care about this guy? And it's because of the great writing. And they redeem him in a very small way with Jinx, because you see he does care about this girl. He has her back in these really twisted, awful ways. But he does care about her. And
in his own way.
They humanize him, as a father.
That moment at the end, because there's also small, subtle moments between them. Like he's totally like a dad. Like there's even small details where I'm like, oh shit, I didn't realize it. Because I have some of the episodes playing. I'm have the episodes playing in the background while we're actually doing this, and I just realized where we're talking is he has an ashtray and it was made by Jinx. It's like that total like. When we were kids, we did these fucking abomination, like mugs and stuff for our parents, and that's what she did when she was a little girl. She made him a little ashtray, and he's been using it for years. He's been doing it for a decade. And I was like, oh my god, this guy obviously cares about this. Yes, in maybe a weird way. Maybe he's not making all the best decisions, but it's these little subtle details you realize when you watch the show, and you might miss. It's like, oh shit, look at that. Or he's also like a dad where he goes and confronts her. He's like, "What have you been doing? I told you to stay here. You killed all the people." And she's like, "Dad, let me tell you about this." He's like, "What?" And I really like that when she reveals that she stole the little part of the hex tech, the orb, and everything. He's like, "Whoa!" And now she helps him with his medication. That's the thing about Silco, which probably should mention. He has when he was almost murdered by Vander years ago, he almost drowned in the toxic waters of the Undercity in Piltover in the bay, and it seeped into his body, and he has to take this medication. You see, actually, I was like, I didn't notice this at first. When he was a younger man, you see that the infection's like kind of only in one place, but it's spreading across his face. I was like, oh wow, I didn't notice that. And he constantly has to use this like eye medication, which I thought was like, is he a drug addict? I thought he was a drug addict at first. He's using Shimmer, but it's not. It is medication. I was like, oh shit, and she helps him with it all the time now. Like before he had to do it himself, but now she helps him with it. I was like, that is like these little subtle things, and shows the affection that she has for him as well. I just thought it was really dope. And of course, that ending, which is my favorite moment of the entire show. And we'll talk about our favorite moments. And obviously any other character moments you want to bring up in regards to Vander or Silco. But that final thing when she's basically, she has her little Mad Hatter tea party, if you will. And she's forcing Vi and Silco to make these choices, and Silco's telling like, don't do it, look what she did to you before, and Vi's like, I'm sorry, and everything. And fucking Silco freaks out and he grabs the gun, he frees himself. Because that's the thing too, he doesn't want Caitlyn to kill Dix. And he tries to kill Vi, and then she, in a moment of just like confusion and she was just so scared, she shoots him, she kills him. And I love her reaction where she's like so sorry and so remorseful. It's like, no. And he's not mad. And the thing is, like, I thought, oh, you're going to do the whole thing where he's going to be like, I never loved you. You were always part of my evil plan. It's like, no, like his last words are, don't cry. You're perfect. And then he dies. And that's like, oh my God. It hit me on emotional level. And that's when she fully embraces the Jinx personality. He's like, I would have never given you up. I would have never given them to you. And that's when she's like, all right, I'm with you. I'm with whatever you wanted. And so as sad as that might be and as destructive as it might be leaving that season, it's such a powerful moment for Silco and also Jinx. But also Vander gets that moment too, where he says goodbye to Vi when he dies. Although there's something I saw at the end where I'm like, okay, are they doing something with that body? I want to add a little fan theory. But when he says goodbye to Vi, he says, take care of Powder. And she doesn't. There's the tragedy of his death.
She immediately doesn't.
Yeah, she's like, nope, will not. But any other thoughts on on Silco or Vander in a moment that really stood out to you that you really loved with those characters?
There's one thing that we kind of touched a little bit about Vander and the other character of Grayson, who was the first sheriff.
Oh yeah, yes. And that character, I love that the actress who voices that character. I forget her name, but she's in so many things and she's great. But keep going.
We talk about how they're like trying to maintain the status quo, and I'm gonna get a little like nerdy here. Like there's a book called "On the Origins of War and Preservation of Peace" by a historian, which basically goes into why nations and people go to war and how peace happens. Based in that book, he talks about that peace is an aberration. It's rare throughout human history, and that like we're so used to it because we've lived in probably one of the longest peaceful times in human history. But historically speaking, nations would constantly be at war with each other. And the times where they're not is because people were actively trying to prevent war. And that's what Vander and Grayson were constantly doing. They were working behind the scenes trying to keep the peace between both sides. Because they both know what's going to happen if they don't. That both sides are going to slam into each other and a lot of bodies are going to get made. So, I mean, like, we were criticizing, like, the Humdinger or whatever his name about him being out of touch and maintaining status quo, but Grayson and Vander were trying to maintain the peace because they knew that if they didn't, it'll be full-blown war.
Yeah, I guess that's a good point, because Silco definitely he's not he doesn't have those he doesn't have that moral struggle when it comes to sacrificing people. He's like, I'll do it. As long as I and my daughter are fine.
Well, he's radical. I mean,
yes,
with Silco, at first I thought, he's just a mustache twirling villain. But as things go on, it's like, no, he actually genuinely thinks he's doing the right thing. Like he knows that kids are getting sick, they're dying, life expectancy is low. I mean, like he doesn't have a problem with compromising his morals a bit to achieve his overall arching goal. He's okay with getting his hands dirty and put it like breaking some eggs, because his overarching goal is to free the underside of the city and make sure that they're independent and that they can call their own shots.
Well, some of those low life expectancy is also because of him.
That's true.
Well, even outside of him, like, I mean, Victor is an example of all the chemicals they just dump into the water. They don't. The people upside, they don't care if they're poisoning the kids or giving them cancer or do all sorts of things. Like, so he knows that. Like, I mean, the Shimmer, it's a weapon. It's an equalizer because they're outgunned, literally.
Oh yeah.
And Shimmer gives them a chance actually to turn the tide against the enforcers. So I mean, if some eggs get broken, you can't make an omelet without breaking some eggs.
I like that. To your point in regards to like that war and how they are outgunned, I like that conversation between Silco and Jace, and how Jace is like, "Listen, I've been to your factory. We can destroy you." You know what we did? It's like, yes, your Shimmer is very powerful, but we can wipe you out with what we have. But Silco, he's like, he still maintains that confidence anyway. And he's like, yet you came to me. Because he knows he's playing on Jace's morality and how Jace, like, he doesn't want it to come to that. And he's like, I'm sure Silco's like, they could fucking wipe me out. And so I got to play this right. Again, it's all the political machination. I think is really cool.
Well, which is interesting because at that moment, Silco's he's actually becoming Vander in some ways.
Yeah,
that's him having the clarity of like, oh shit, I'm like Vander with the daughters all over again. And then he's coming to the realization, it's like, I mean, war's going to happen unless I do something to prevent it.
Yeah.
And Vander probably would have done the same thing that he did and not give his daughter up for peace. Well, not peace, but
to get what he wants in the end.
Right.
His nation of Zaun, if you will, as he calls it. Any other thoughts from anyone else in regards to Silco and Vander before we kind of and everyone has any other character? Like, I'll throw it out there. Any other thoughts on Silco or Vander or any other character in this show that you want to give? Because there's so many characters. There literally is. It's like, fuck, there's this guy and this guy and this and her and him. But is there anyone else you wanted to throw out there that you're like, this character was cool, I like this moment with them, etc.?
Well, I mean, I think I hope they show more about what's going on with Mel in season 2. Like, I hope she's still alive because clearly, towards the end, something was going on with her. She had that thing on her back, and it just like there's some speculation going around that she has some sort of abilities, and the most character development she's gotten is like the last 2 episodes, and also showcasing her artwork. Like, we finally see what it is she's been painting, and her mom finally sees, while looking at that artwork, the kind of effect that all this violence has had on her. So it's like, now that we know what her intentions are, I want to know more about her.
That's a good point. Like, yeah, who's going to survive that bombing? That attack. Because her back does do that weird reflective thing, and then she's right in the direction of that rocket too. It's like, okay,
she's the first to get got.
She's the first one to get got. So very curious about that. Especially because she got so much development. That's true, but it also could set off Jay. I mean, there's so many things that could happen potentially, and I don't know what these characters are like in the games, or if she's in a character in the game. Like, I don't know. I don't speak characters just for the sake of the show. So that's interesting. So yeah, I like what they did with her. I like that she's not one note. There is a lot of depth to her, and her mother's a wild card, especially like that nation. And it's like, even Jason Silco's conversation, we have enemies outside of what we're doing here. There's other people, so there's going to be a foreign element. Other people coming in here wanting that hex tech, I'm sure. So there is all that. So yeah, no, great to bring that up. Any other thoughts on Vander Silco or any of the other characters maybe we haven't mentioned? Cool. No, that's fine. I mean, there's so many. There's the Sigurd, I think, is the chemist, the mad chemist that Victor has a relationship with, and he doesn't really get a lot of development other than being creepy.
Very creepy.
Wanting to protect the mutation, but he has like a daughter, so maybe we'll learn more about him. He does a weird thing in episode, like another great scene when Silco takes Jinx to him to basically inject her with Shimmer to keep her alive. And Silco kisses her head and everything, which I thought was really adorable. But before then, you see like the guy was like taking things out of his face. I don't know what. Did you guys remember to see that thing? He was like, he removed something and he put like his hood up. So is he like, I don't know, what is he removing teeth? Like, I don't fucking know, but it was weird. I was like, what the hell is that? He's removing shrapnel.
He got burned really badly during the explosion.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So he was taking the bandages and everything off.
Okay, I just thought he pulled something
during
out
the
of
flashback scene with when he's treating Jinx, she sees his face and how scarred up he is.
Yeah. So I imagine we're gonna get more of him in the future, and maybe Bobby learn more about his daughter. Man, yeah, that's the other thing too. You got to think about it. Like, okay, there's a power vacuum now. Like, Silco was gone, who was kind of maintaining control over all these gangs at the time. And they're all trying to betray him, but he always managed to keep them under his thumb. But he's gone, and Jinx, I don't think, is going to... maybe she will. Maybe she will pull a whole thing where she's like, okay, now I'm in charge of this. But she seems so mad and so erratic at the very end. Confident in who she finally was, but also just like, I'm going to light the match and let everything explode. So we'll see what happens. Like, who's this enemy? Now that Silco's dead, seemingly, like, who are we fighting? Who are we fighting? That's gonna be interesting. Unless it was just gonna be pure chaos. Very interested about that. But moving on from any other, of course, you can mention any other characters you guys want to. I really want to talk about like moments, of course, in this series, and there are so many absolute amazing moments throughout this entire show. It's hard for me to pick like even 3, but as I said before, like the crazy Mad Hatter Jinx tea party scene, where she's talking to both Vi and Silco and Catelyn, how she's obviously so jealous about Catelyn and hates her so much because Vi has such affection for her. I mean, loves her. She's like, oh, God damn it. Your girl. She even calls, she's the first one to say, your girlfriend. I paid a visit to your girlfriend the other day. And I was like, what are you talking about? It's like, So like, I that entire sequence up until the final moment with she unleashing the rocket on the council was great to me. The bar fight scene with Vi and Sevka was great. That brawl was good. I mean, all the action scenes are great in this series, and of course, yeah, everyone's mentioned Echo and Jinx. But does anyone else have like favorite moments or scenes with any particular characters in this series that really stood out to you?
It's definitely has blown my mind, like, how much Savika has survived over the course of the series, because there were at least, like, 2 or 3 different times where I thought she was just dead, and
Yeah.
then in the next episode, she pops up again, and I'm like, "What happened?" Like, at one point, she was hanging
Yeah.
from the ceiling unconscious, and I thought she'd been
Hmm.
killed, but she's a resilient one.
I guess they're keeping her around for obviously the next season. I mean, yeah, she lost her arm again.
Yeah, she's a survivor.
I was trying to light her cigar and stuff. Yeah, no, she gets her. I mean, she's tough. She gets her ass kicked a lot, but yeah, she's very much a survivor. So I'm very interested to see how that's going to play out. Anyone else have any other scenes, or Caspi, have any other scenes that really spoke to you?
I just really love all the imagery that they showed in the Firelight Society, just how warm and beautiful it is compared to everything else, like the sunlight and the green and everything. It gives you hope, you know?
Especially because it's in the Undercity, too, where it's all steampunky and covered in smog and smoke and drugs. This is gross. Everything's covered in grime. It's like, oh, I don't want to live here. But that's the one part. It's like, see, there's beauty in it. So yeah, no, good scene to bring up. Very good scene to bring up. We're obviously going to see more of that in season 2, especially with Hemmendinger there and Echo working together. Anyone else? Any favorite scene that really stood out to you, or scenes that we've already mentioned?
I really enjoyed actually the Firelight introduction and the Jinx introduction. Like, you see this new force come out, and they've got these strange new weapons and everything, and then like, oh, this is going to be the focus, and then Jinx comes in, and they really establish just how much of a threat she is. Like, if you remembered Powder from just an episode again, nah, man, fuck that girl. Jinx is here.
That's true. That time jump does really show you how many things, how much has changed over time. I like that.
Right.
You're just like, this little crying girl.
Grown.
Yeah. No, good. Yeah, go on. And also, I like hoverboards. I'm a simple man. I'm an easy man to please, and I like my hoverboards. Dangerous as hell, but I like them. A lot of those kids die. Those regulators, they die. Jesus. Add another one to the mural. Oh, what about you, Deadpool or Person Mans? Any other particular scene or sequence or character moment that really spoke to you, that you just kind of fell in love with, or you watched over and over again?
I think my favorite scene is the one where Jinx fires off that flare, and her and Vi meet up for the first time after she got out.
That's a beautiful moment. Just the music in that. I love that sequence.
Either that or the final moment with Silco.
Yeah, I think those are a lot of people's top ones. But yeah, I love that moment too. Just everything works so well. The animation and the music, and then the characters and how they met and how they reacted to each other. Deadpool, what about yourself, good sir? Did you have like a favorite scene in the series?
Well, all of you guys have the really happy ones, except mine is actually probably one of the most tragic parts of the show.
Cool.
It's where Powder sets off her bomb the first time.
Oh.
Because
why we forget about that? My God, I can't believe
keep going. They were
Jesus.
so close to escaping.
Yeah.
Powder thought she was saving them, ends up killing almost all of them because of her actions, and then her coming to terms with what's happening, and Vander dying, and Viv losing her shit and slapping her, and then and just Powder just completely having a mental breakdown. And right when you think Silco's going to finish her off, she jumps into his arms and he embraces her.
He hugs her.
That's the moment, and I was like, "What the heck am I watching? This has no right to be this good." Like, the writing is so good. It's just like it completely caught me off guard. Like how all these moments, because you think something's going to happen, the show just keeps pulling the rug out from under you.
That's a great choice, especially I think if you had maybe doubts about the series, like anyone in general, I'd like, I don't know about this. I feel like that's the episode people go, okay, okay, yeah. I have to tell you, like how Clegor and Milo died, it was fucked. I mean, Clegor just got bludgeoned to death. Something fucking hit his head, and he was dead instantly. And Milo, he got impaled by that pipe, and then he got bludgeoned to death. He saw it coming. He's like, well, oh yeah, no, that's I was like, oh, that I felt that.
It hit hard.
Yeah, the look on his face.
Yeah, the horror, which he has. There's the thing is, I'm glad you brought that up, because anytime we like Jinx, she has these hallucinations or she sees them in her mind. Milo's always in. He always has that death wail. Like when they're doing this person man's talked about before, like when she unleashes the flare and we spin around, Milo has that look, and Clegor has that like, didn't even know what the fuck just happened because he was killed so quickly. Incredible moment, and definitely I think the incident in which would get people to like, okay, I'm gonna stick around for this. Let's see what happens next. I think that's the big moment for anybody. Did anyone else want? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Deadpool.
Yeah, they were so close to escaping too.
Yep, that's the other thing too. It's like, oh, we're all gonna do it, and then, yeah, it's like shit. Yeah, it was sad. It was very sad. Any other last minute moments, character actions, or just gotta go into final thoughts about the show? I mean, I can start just saying my final thoughts, and anyone else wants to bring up anything you want, please do so. The floor will be yours shortly, but as I said before, this is probably the best show / movie, whatever you want to call it, piece of media, piece of entertainment that I've seen this year, along with Mitchell's vs. the Machines, what I absolutely loved. I was very impressed with this series. Everything from the animation to the writing, to the characters, to the world building. I never felt lost while watching it. It was a perfect length. Those 9 episodes. That's like that is the thing. And I like the 3-act structure of it. How things change over time. It's just that series where I'm like, again, I'm struggling. Do I have any super big criticisms of it? It's like, no, not really. Like nothing. Maybe something will come to me one day, or like I didn't. Well, you know what? That could have been done better. But overall, it's kind of like that perfect show, and it's going to be a hell of a task for them to live up to this first season. This did greenlit for season 2, which they said is years off. This will be a post 2022 second season, so you're not getting this next year. So it's like, god damn it. But at the same time, good things come to those that wait. So I'm hoping for the best. But it does what a video game adaptation should done, as I said before, where you don't need to know the original property to enjoy it. It's, as in the words of Silco, you are perfect. Any other thoughts? I'll just go down the line. Person Man's any final thoughts on the show?
I don't really have anything to say better than anyone here has already put it. It's pretty much perfect, I think.
There you go. I like the consistency. Caspe, yourself.
I was blown away by it. Like I said, the story and the characters and everything, right down to the animation, and like you all said, the facial expressions. You can tell there's a lot of work that went into this, and it really doesn't surprise me that the next season is so far off. I wish that weren't the case, but if it's going to be the same quality as this, then it'll be worth it.
Nice. Very nice. Very well put. Stefan, Duncan Henry, yourself, sir.
So I have to say there's only one thing that I can say that I truly hate about this show, and that's that it made me raise my bar again. I got so used to having low expectations for things having wasted potential. There's been so many properties where they had a chance to expand or, start something that could really be great, a world that you really could feel like, you were a part of. And time and time again, we've seen that fail, and Arcane is not that show. Arcane has taken world building like the next level, I think. And it's just nice to see as well, with the great world building, with the great characters, that they're giving more shine to that Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse type of animation, where it does feel like a moving painting, and it's different, and I was blown away by it.
That animation style, I'm glad you brought that up. It's 3D, but it incorporates a lot of 2D. There is 2D animation in this. I can tell.
Yes.
Certain things like how smoke or fire or anything, or even they put 2D stuff on the character models. And they need to, and we see this Into the Spider-Verse. We saw this in Mitchell's vs. the Machines this year. Yes. And I don't, do they have a name for that animation style yet? Is it a specific type? Like, I don't know if
don't
like
know.
I just want a generic term to use in the future, because I'm just like, how do I'm sure that there is, I just don't know. It just feels so new. I guess also Peanuts did that too. The Peanuts movie had the same type.
The first time I saw that kind of animation was actually like a League of Legends like CG movie that they made around
Okay.
Actually, yeah, that's
2017. I think.
true. Yeah, some of this
interesting.
animation has been seen often in the cinematic trailers for
Hmm.
League of Legends from back in the day. Thank you. Yeah, you just reminded me.
Nice. Cool. Maybe I'll call it Legends animation. I don't know. I wish they would come up with a term for it. I mean, I guess I'll do it someday. But that's cool that they also had it in the CGI trailers, or I guess just those animated trailers. That's nice.
Yeah.
And Deadpool, yourself, good sir, your final thoughts on this series?
Well, I guess you could say this is probably the best video game adaptation ever made. I mean, blows all the other ones out of the water.
I'm right there with you.
And now, because clearly Riot, when they put this out, they weren't sure how this was going to do, how well this was going to be received. And the fact that it's blowing up so much is a good sign, because that means Netflix and other studios are going to start be looking, hey, we want to get our Arcane, which is probably going to be a mixed bag, because you're going to get some good ones, you're going to get some bad ones. And I've always wanted an Overwatch, like some kind of adaptation, like a movie or a series, because their trailers are amazing. I always wanted to see them try to adapt that for something like to expand on, because I always thought that. So I mean, like maybe Blizzard will see Arcane, goes, hey, maybe we should adapt Overwatch.
They could do it too, especially with the characters they have. And I always thought, like, watching those little animated segments of those Overwatch characters, I was like, yeah, I could see that. Definitely. I wonder if they would take a similar tone to Arcane. I mean, I guess they could. I mean, they are dealing with terrorists and villains and things and character deaths, and they have the lore for it. So, yeah. No, keep going. Sorry.
You can also see this in other games. Like, you could see, like, StarCraft or all these other video games take what Arcane is doing and try to apply. Like, we could see, like, Assassin's Creed do a similar thing with animation style.
Oh,
yeah.
I
Actually get a decent adaptation out of it, and actually give time to actually expand on the characters in the story.
A lot of these video games have they're all capable of delivering fantastic adaptations. It's just that Riot and clearly Fortiche, the French animation studio. Fortiche is the one that animated it. Riot oversaw it. I think that's what the official thing was. You know, they just put in the extra effort, and the writers put in the extra effort. And it's another case, and to your point, where these production companies, you know, the Constantine films of the world, if you will, who make the Resident Evil movies, like, you got to stop half-assing it, seriously, or not, you know, putting the amount of care and effort into it. Because when you do put the care and effort into it, look what you can accomplish. Look what this did. It's a cultural phenomenon. Everyone's loving it. Most people are loving it. Like, I haven't even seen or heard, or, you know, people are going like, it's awful. Like, I have not heard that. I'm sure there are. I'm sure they're out there. But for the most part, the people are saying this is great, and you're going to get another thing. And so, wouldn't you want that for your property? Wouldn't you want that, as you mentioned, Deadpool for Overwatch, or for Assassin's Creed, or Resident Evil? I mean, of course you do. So this is just another example of, much like Castlevania before it, that, like, if you actually put in the actual effort, people respond to it, and they'll want more of it. And Arcane I think is going to stand the test of time, at least for a while, is being one, at least for now, the best video game adaptation, if not one of the best video game adaptations of all time. So I have a lot of respect for it and what these people did, and I'm very excited, as all you guys clearly are, for the next season. So as long as it, you know, I know it's a long ways away, but I'm a patient man, and so I'll go ahead and wait. But that does bring an end to Discourse episode 9. Thank you, Deadpool. Thank you, Stefan. Thank you, Casfane. Thank you, Persimans, for joining me for this episode. It was great talking, great picking your brains. And listen, this will be like, and now we shall never talk about this series again. Like, we'll definitely talk about it again, and we can go into more details. And I want to hear you guys' feedback as well about how we can talking about maybe individual episodes and changing Discord discourse and making it better for everyone involved and those who listen to it and those who participate in it, because I think this is really fun. I really like talking with you guys and for making just this a really cool little thing we do every Saturday. But for those who are listening, thank you so much, and we'll see you next time. Bye. Bye-bye.
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 Bye-bye. Yay.